Heroes of the night, that's what we gotta be. Not looking for a fight, just ending them, see. The Legend of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Part 1, Chapter 11, Flashback, written and performed by Joseph Chambers and based on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. So, Leonardo reluctantly followed his brothers through the Great Sewer Network. After 10 minutes, they reached a wide canal of sewerage. The smell was stomach-churning and made 3 of the 4 boys nearly throw up. The summer heat of June just worked against them to enhance the rancid stench. The only one who was not gagging was Mikey, as he was still beaming in amazement at the new location. Leonardo decided to become commander of the outing so he could at least control the situation, having failed to prevent it, and mentally wrote a speech. He began, "We must have rules. Number 1, we must stick together. Number 2, we must return to the lair before father comes home. Number 3, no touching the sewerage or any of the animals in the sewers." Raph raised his hand. "Yes," grunted Leonardo impatiently. "Does Mikey count as an animal? Because I really don't want him touching me." He chuckled. Michelangelo splashed him with dirty water. Raphael accidentally swallowed some of this, forcing him to cough and splutter dramatically, which made both Donatello and Michelangelo burst into laughter. Leonardo stood watching, a face like a dark cloud, and broke in with the words, "Could we please be a little less... Leo paused, trying to find the right word. His wrist rotated like a turbine, as if he was hoping it would power a motor in his head, which would help him find the correct vocabulary. "Juvenile?" Donnie offered. "What the shell does juvenile mean?" asked Michelangelo. "It's an adjective that describes the actions of someone as childlike," Donatello answered. "Okay, well, what does adjective mean?" Mikey asked with even more confusion. Leonardo then interrupted. "Can we please return to the topic of safety in the sewers rather than giving Michelangelo extra literacy lessons? Now, where was I? Rule number 4, absolutely no fighting or dangerous..." Mikey slipped his headphones back on, bored stiff by his brother's speech after only a few seconds, and began to walk off, singing and dancing as he went, to the Black Eyed Peas' latest single. "I got a feeling, ooh, ooh, that tonight's gonna be a good night, that tonight's gonna be a good night, that tonight's gonna be a good, ah!" Michelangelo felt himself lose his footing, waved his arms wildly, and splashed into the putrid river, which was a lot deeper and had a far stronger current than he could have ever imagined. Even though he was a good swimmer, he could not possibly fight against it and could only slow down the inevitable. Leonardo, Donatello and Raphael were now very aware that Michelangelo was not present, and when they heard him scream, they began to run full pelt towards the worried whale. When they reached the corner, they could see Mikey manically trying to swim against the rapids. Michelangelo's heart skipped at least 10 beats as he realised the tide was heading towards a massive turbine that would chop him into turtle sushi before he could utter, "Cowabunga, dudes!" for one final time. "Somebody get him up!" Raphael shouted. He hurriedly squatted down and tried to reach him, but Michelangelo was in the middle of the stream and could not reach the edge or Raphael's outstretched arm. Leonardo, despite his brothers panicking, was very calm. Then, quite suddenly, his resting leadership spirit was able to focus, and the roar of his loud voice, much like a lion's roar, was obeyed by his entire pride. "Raph, you will stab your sides into that wall, and Donnie will climb onto them. Don, you will then use your grappling hook to climb onto the pipe." He pointed to one above the stream by about 6 foot, and only about a yard or so away from the roofless and rusted blades of the turbine. He seemed to emphasise the word will with each use, as if cementing his speech as a command rather than a request. Raphael shoved his daggers into the wall just above his head and allowed Donnie to climb onto his hands and then onto his daggers. Donatello got his grappling hook out of his belt and shot it at the pipe so it bit into the metal securely. Donatello then released the mechanism and zipped onto the top of the pipe. "Pass your bow down to Mikey so he can grab onto the end," Leonardo called up to his brother. Donatello did so, and as Michelangelo passed the pipe beneath him, he climbed to safety, seconds before reaching a far too graphic to think about death. Seconds later, Master Splinter rocketed out of the shadows, making all the boys jump terribly high with shocked guilt as their expressions. He was not as angry as they had expected, and even congratulated them on their teamwork, but most of all seemed relieved that they were unhurt. However, it was at this point that Master Splinter had made Donatello install tracking chips in his brothers and himself. Donatello had taken the time to ensure his was a fake, so that he could have freedom if he ever felt he needed it. Even at a young age, Donatello was very keen about thinking ahead. Flashing back ahead to 2013, and in the apartment of the O'Neills, Donatello was inspecting Mrs. O'Neill. "Help me get her feet up onto the couch," he requested to April. "What? Why?" exclaimed April. "She has fainted," he answered. "I know that. I'm not stupid," said April, a little irritated. "Well, we have to get her feet up to get the blood back to her internal organs." "Well, you could have explained that in the first place," muttered April as she did as he asked. "So, is this your first time out of the sewers?" "Yeah, am I doing okay?" "At what?" said April, perplexed. "Fitting in?" Donnie finished hesitantly. April looked down at her unconscious mother and then back at Donatello and his green and half-shelled form. They both shared a smile and a nervous laugh before April said, "Can I get you a drink or a snack or something?" "I suppose tea and a biscuit or two wouldn't go amiss," Donnie said happily. "Sorry, we're all out of tea. I can offer you a hot chocolate, though." "Well, that's even better." Donatello then made himself comfortable on the couch that April's mum was now resting her legs on.